All right, guys, so this is your lesson where you learn how to form adverbs. So adverbs are sort of a new thing. We have been exposed to some of them. We just did not know that they were adverbs at the time, which happens often when we're learning French. So adverbs, what is an adverb, you say? Well, an adverb is a word that describes the way an action is done. So very much like an adjective describes a person or a thing, an adverb describes a verb and the way the action of the verb is performed. A few examples. I sing beautifully. They give generously and they act selfishly. So let's take a look at this. I sing beautifully. Well, beautifully describes the way I sing. They give generously. Generously describes the way they give. And they act selfishly. Selfishly describes the way that they act. So a lot of times our adverbs in English will end in ly, and we have our own ly in French, the equivalent of that. So some of the adverbs that you may have, the one I'm thinking off the top of my head is finalement. Finally is an adverb we've been exposed to. So how do we form our French adverbs? Well, we form our French adverbs by taking the feminine form of an adjective to then add ment, and that ment is the equivalent of our English ly. All right, so let me give you a couple of examples. So, of course, again, let me put that construction in visual for you. We take the feminine form of an adjective and we add ment to that feminine form. So we just got done working with irregular adjectives where we have to change the ending. So normally an adjective, um, the feminine form of an adjective is done by just adding a simple e. But if we're working with an irregular adjective, then we might have to change that up a little bit, like we just got done learning in the beginning of this lesson. So, an example here, généreux. All right. So, in order to form the adverb for the adjective généreux, generous, we would have to take the feminine form of that. So, we just got done learning that any adjective ending in EUX we have to change the ending to EUSE, so généreuse, and then I would add my MENT to it, turning it into the adverb généreusement, which means generously. Here's another irregular adjective, actif. It's an IF, and we learned that in order to make an IF adjective feminine, we are going to drop the F and replace it with VE. So active, again, add my MENT. Activement would be our equivalent to actively. And then just to give you an example of a regular verb that where you would just add an E to make it feminine, mauvais, bad. The feminine form is mauvaise. Add this ment for mauvaisement, which is equal to badly. All right. So, of course, in French, there are always exceptions, and we usually have rebels that make our lives a pain in the butt. So, it's not an exception here when it comes to our adverbs. So, any adjectives that end in I, accent aigu, ant, or ent, those do not form the same way. So, let's go over the adjectives that end with I or accent aigu. So, because it's already a vowel, we're not going to go ahead and add that extra E because there's no point to it. All right, so they stay as is. And we still add our MENT. All right, so a couple of examples for you. Spontané, which means spontaneous. Well, there would be no point in adding an extra E there. So we're going to leave it as is. We're going to add our MENT, spontanément, which is the equivalent to spontaneously. Yeah, say that 3 times. Another adjective that ends in an I this time, joli, pretty. There's no need to add a silent E to that, so we're not going to do that. We're going to leave it as is. Add our MENT for joliment, which means prettily or beautifully. Okay, in a pretty way. I guess prettily is not really an adverb that we would um, use that often in English. But so yeah, it is an adverb that we use a lot in French, though, I will say. Then moving on to our adjectives that end in ANT and ENT. So a little bit more complex here. So you take the adjective ending in ANT or ENT, and first you're going to chop off that NT. Okay, so you chop off that NT, and then you will add MENT. Okay, so the MENT is still there. We're just adding an extra M. So a couple of examples for you. Intelligent, intelligent. Well, what do? I'm going to go ahead and drop off that NT, add MENT for intelligemment, which is the equivalent to intelligently. Okay, and another one that ends in ANT this time to give you an example. Élégant. I'm going to go ahead and chop off that NT, so that's what we're left with. Add MENT, élégamment, which is the equivalent to our English elegantly. So those exceptions are what uh, are going to get you when you do the assignments for this week. So just make sure you have this PowerPoint handy somewhere where you can reference to it. Uh, just remember, try to maybe have a little note next to you with these 4 things here to sort of like set off a little flag. And of course, your irregular adjectives, maybe go back to last week's assignments and lessons and have those resources handy to help you uh, complete the assignments this week. So if you have any questions, call, text, or email. Go ahead and submit your assignments as soon as you complete them. So that way it gives me a chance to take a look at them and give you feedback so that if you do run into some bumps along the way, I can kind of like clarify things and make the rest of the assignments easier for you to complete. Hope you're all doing well, and